Part 43. Urban Super Dude. Author, Eagle in the Desert. Chapter 421. Gilug. Su Yang stared blankly at the scene in front of him, his eyes widened, and his heart could not calm down for a long time. A charming girl, in her 20s and 8 years, with a seductive fragrance on her body, would appear on the bed like this. What man could bear it? The most thrilling thing is that the girl is holding a fluffy tail in her hand, which has a unique flavor, and is looking at her with a smile on her face. Su Yang couldn't help but swallow, his heart pounding. Owner. At this time, Shifen once again took the white tail, gently swept Su Yang's face, and then said softly, "I am Shifen, I have turned into a human form." Well, I saw it. Hearing the ethereal girl's voice, Su Yang came back to his senses, got up and got out of bed, looked away and said, "Shifen, don't rub me with your tail." "Why?" Shifen looked at Su Yang with her beautiful eyes and said aggrievedly, "Master, do you hate me?" "It's okay." Su Yang cleared his throat and said, "However, there are differences between men and women. You are a girl, so let's not get too close." "Why can't you get too close?" Shifen's beautiful eyes were full of doubts. As she spoke, she walked into Su Yang. For a moment, the scenery was infinitely beautiful. "Because..." Su Yang hurriedly said, "Ahem, Shifen, please put on your clothes quickly." "Wear clothes? I never wear clothes. Why should I wear clothes? I think it looks good." Shifen looked down at her body, obviously very satisfied with her figure. "Well, it's so cold outside. If you don't wear clothes, you'll freeze your body," Su Yang said casually. "I'm not afraid of the cold." Shifen smiled and said, "Master, can I stop wearing clothes?" "No." Su Yang said with a dark face, "I order you to wear clothes. You lie on the bed first and wrap yourself in a quilt. I will buy you clothes." "All right." Shifen was a little reluctant, but she obediently did as Su Yang said. She covered her body with a quilt, only her head was exposed, and she had a fresh and refined face that would captivate the country. "Correct." Su Yang was about to go out when he suddenly thought of something and asked, "Shifen, I gave you some knowledge of cultivation before. This time you have broken through to foundation establishment. Do you feel any difference on the earth?" "Have." Shifen responded, "Master, the laws of the earth are rather strange. Here, the cultivator's power will be amplified several times. By building the foundation, he can fly in the air and split mountains with his palms." Shifen continued, "But it is very difficult to break through on earth. According to the experience you passed on to me, if a cultivator breaks through to build a foundation, it will not cause thunder catastrophe, but the earth will have to experience the baptism of thunder tribulation." Speaking of thunder tribulation, Shifen raised her neck and said arrogantly, "But thunder tribulation is just a means to strengthen the physical body for us nine-tailed ghost foxes, and it is not worth mentioning." "Master, you saw it last night, right? Am I strong?" Shifen looked at Su Yang, her little expression seemed to be saying, "Come on, praise me." "Sharp." Su Yang smiled, raised his hand and touched Shifen's head, and then realized that Shifen was already in human form. His old face turned red with embarrassment, he took 2 steps back, and then said, "Shifen, you can set foot on the foundation. I have practiced some secret techniques, and I have some secret techniques practiced by the great masters of the demon clan, and I will pass them on to you now." "Master, no need." Shifen shook her head and said, "I don't know why, but after I returned to my ancestors, I had some more memories in my mind, including secret techniques, which seem to be quite powerful." "That's it?" Su Yang looked at Shifen carefully and concluded that Shifen's origin was not that simple. Perhaps it had something to do with the only 9-tailed fox in the world. But no matter Shifen's origins, she only has one identity now, and that is Su Yang's spiritual beast. Once a soul contract is signed, it cannot be cancelled unless the owner agrees. Not even the 4 immortal emperors of the Xiantian immortal domain can change it. Therefore, Su Yang naturally does not have to worry about Shifen posing a threat to him. Thinking of this, Su Yang did not ask about the secret technique, but said, "Okay, Shifen, you stay here, I will buy you clothes." "Yeah." Shifen smiled charmingly and reminded, "Master, don't forget to buy the innermost clothes." The innermost clothes, Su Yang paused and didn't react for a moment. "Well, it's just the kind that girls would wear," Shifanayu explained with a blushing face. Cough. Su Yang understood immediately and felt a little embarrassed, then said, "No, Shifen, you even know what girls need to wear, but you acted so innocent just now and asked me why I wear clothes. Are you kidding me?" "Yes, it is." Shifen showed a smile and then stuck out her tongue, which was very cute. "Damn it. Although she looks so charming and has a sexy body, she is also a bit cute. The key is that her voice is pure and ethereal, which can kill all the men in the world. I go first." After leaving a word, Su Yang hurriedly walked out of the room, fearing that if he stayed any longer, he would not be able to control himself. "Master, it's so interesting. Are all humans so hypocritical? They think clearly but don't take any action. Anyway, I will always stay with the master. Sooner or later, I will let him lie on the bed with me." Watching Su Yang disappear, Shifen's beautiful eyes showed a sly smile, and she seemed to have convinced Su Yang. Before leaving the riverside villa, Su Yang went to the next room to take a look. Last night, he did not take Shifen to his room, but stayed in another room. Because Lu Wanyan and 10 others were practicing in Su Yang's room using the moonlight. Entering his room, Su Yang found Lu Wanyan and others, their whole bodies exuding a cold light, practicing the Guanganju. They absorbed the power of the moonlight last night, but the level of Guangan art is very high. It is not easy to get started, so I won't disturb them. With this in mind, Su Yang walked down the 3rd floor. Immediately afterwards, he was about to drive to buy some clothes for Shifen, but he received a call from Li Fixuan. "Su Yang, do you have time today? If so, come to my house. My mother wants to meet you," Li Fixuan whispered on the phone. "Fei Xian, you don't know how to speak. What do you mean he has time?" "Humph, no matter if he has time or not, he must come to Li's house today, otherwise he will never come again." Before Su Yang responded, the voice of his mother-in-law Han Yongxia came over the phone. "Mom, I'm talking to Su Yang, can you please keep quiet?" Li Fixuan complained, and then continued, "Su Yang, don't listen to my mother's nonsense. If you have time, just come. If you don't have time, forget it." "Honey, why don't you have time? I was planning to go find you." Su Yang smiled softly and said, "You wait at home, I will be there soon." "Well, slow down on the road," Li Fixuan said with concern. "Okay." Su Yang smiled, then hung up the phone and drove straight to the Li family manor. Urban Super Dude. Author, Eagle in the Desert. Chapter 422. Since it is daytime, there are many people on the street, and we are not in a hurry. So, Su Yang chose to drive instead of using Jixi Tianya. Not long after, he drove to the Li family manor. Father-in-law Li Kuowu was already waiting outside. Seeing Su Yang get out of the car, Li Kuowu stepped forward with a smile on his face. "Su Yang, you're here. Come on, please come inside." "Father-in-law, why are you being polite to me?" Su Yang smiled, then said doubtfully, "By the way, father-in-law, mother-in-law, why are you asking me for anything? The tone sounds like she is not very happy. Isn't it because that night, you and concubine Xian, ahem, That girl Kikai is quick to talk and has already told your mother-in-law about your affairs. Li Kuo reminded, Su Yang, your mother-in-law has taken great care of concubine Xian since she was a child, teaching her knowledge and ethics, and training her to be a lady, but before you got married, your mother-in-law was very angry when she found out. Let alone her, even I feel like the cabbage I worked so hard to grow has been stolen by a pig. Li Kuo continued, when you see your mother-in-law, don't worry about what she says. Just pretend you didn't hear her. Don't talk to her. She just vents and everything will be fine after that. Clear? Su Yang smiled and nodded, and then said, but father-in-law, we have visited the club together. Our friendship is extraordinary. When the time comes, you have to put in a good word for me. Su Yang, you are pushing your limits a bit. Concubine Xian is my daughter. You did something unruly and you still want me to help you smooth things over. Li Kuo was slightly unhappy. Father-in-law, as long as you help me get out of the siege, I'll ask you to go to the Jade Finger Wonderland to massage your feet and take a bath, Su Yang promised. Jade Finger Wonderland. Li Kuo was suddenly moved, his eyes were shining, but he hid them, patted Su Yang on the shoulder, and said seriously, Su Yang, if you say this, you will be offended. We will soon become we are a family, so I should help you, don't worry, as long as your father-in-law is here, your mother-in-law will not dare to accuse you. Then I'll leave it to my father-in-law, Su Yang said with a smile. Don't be polite to your father-in-law. Li Kuo smiled, then suddenly remembered something, and said, by the way, Su Yang, your grandfather has already told the Li family about your other identity. Your kid is actually Su Xiantian. Humph, what you did was so unethical. It made us think that Fei Xian had done something sorry for you. Su Yang, tell me, how do you plan to make up for it? Li Kuo said with an unkind expression. Ahem. Su Yang cleared his throat and then said, how about, father-in-law, after you go to Jade Finger Fairyland, I will invite you to the night club. That is a good place that is not inferior to Jade Finger Fairyland. Real? Li Kuo was instantly attracted, but then he said seriously, Su Yang, don't think that if you invite me to these two places, I will forgive you. You have deceived me badly. Father-in-law, tell me what you can do to calm down, Su Yang said helplessly. Snort. When Li Kuo heard this, he looked at Su Yang and said seriously, I want you to invite me to the night club twice. Su Yang suddenly had a dark thought, his emotional father-in-law was waiting for him here. Never mind. Just twice, it won't cost much anyway. Su Yang happily agreed, and then walked into the Li family manor with Li Kuo. A few minutes later, Su Yang and Li Kuo appeared in the manor's living room. In the living room, only Li Kikai was watching TV. She was lying on the sofa with her bare feet, watching Master Chef Xiao Fuegui and eating potato chips. Kikai, why are you alone? Where are your mother and your sister? Li Kuo asked. Oh, they too are cooking in the kitchen, Li Kikai responded. I'm going to the kitchen, Kikai, to chat with your brother-in-law. Li Kuo left a word and strode into the kitchen on the other side. At this moment, only Li Kikai and Su Yang were left in the living room. Li Kikai's eyes fell on Su Yang, and she greeted with a smile, brother-in-law is here. Su Yang nodded, turned around and asked, Kikai, I heard that you told your mother-in-law about me and your sister. I spilled the beans. Li Kikai explained, and then added, besides, you came out holding the wall that day. Even if I didn't tell, my mother would know sooner or later. Forget it, I won't argue with you. Su Yang glanced at Li Kikai, and then asked, Kikai, Fei Xian and mother-in-law are cooking, why don't you go and help? I don't know how to cook, so I'm learning cooking skills, Li Kikai said seriously. Learning cooking skills? Watch Magic Chef Xiao Fuegui learn cooking skills? You are such a talent. Su Yang rolled his eyes at Li Kekai and was speechless. Han Yongzia's eyes fell on the clasped hands of the two of them. She snorted coldly, and then said, Su Yang, I had already accepted you before, but later I heard Kekai talking about you, and then I found out about you. All the dandies are in disguise. Li Kuo didn't dare to fart, so he hid in the kitchen with a spatula in hand. You are very good. You know how to be patient. You are also very powerful now. You are a young talent worthy of trust. Mother-in-law. At this time, Li Kuo heard the noise and walked out of the kitchen with a spatula. In this case, our Li family doesn't owe you anything. It's better to explain some things clearly, Han Yongzia said lightly. Okay. When Su Yang heard this, his face looked a little ugly, and he frowned and said, Auntie, how do you say this? In my opinion, you don't love Fei Xian at all, you just covet her body. Men are like this. If they get it, they won't cherish it. At this moment, Han Yongzia and Li Feixuan walked out of the kitchen. It's the Jade Finger Wonderland, and it's the nightclub. My uncle is so kind to me. In this situation, I must step forward to save my uncle. What's your name, mother-in-law? And who is your wife? Mentioning what happened that night, Han Yongzia gritted her teeth and said, Su Yang, tell me truthfully, what do you think of Feixuan? Is Feixuan just a plaything in your eyes? Snort. You came. Han Yongzia said with an unkind expression, Su Yang, please pay attention to your words. Concubine Xian has not married you yet. Is it too early to call her this way now? Su Yang, what I said is yes or no, please follow your heart and answer me truthfully, Han Yongzia asked in a deep voice. Wife. Wife. Among them, Han Yongzia looked at Su Yang and said hello expressionlessly. Li Feixuan stood next to Han Yongzia, wearing an apron and with flour on her face, looking a little cute. So, Li Kuo cleared his throat, arranged his clothes, and said seriously, why are you talking to my uncle? My uncle is not that kind of person. He announced to the concubine. Yes, Su Yang smiled and nodded. Mom. Su Yang greeted the two of them one after another. Su Yang touched the bridge of his nose and stood aside awkwardly, not knowing what to say. If you didn't treat concubine Xian as a plaything, how could you have sex with her before getting married? Hey, there's no way a female student can stay in college. Seeing her mother's attitude, Li Feixuan took the initiative to hold Su Yang's hand to express her attitude. Li Feixuan glanced at Han Yongzia, slightly unhappy, then walked to Su Yang and whispered, Su Yang, you can call her whatever you want. We are getting married soon anyway. Originally, I was very happy and thought that Fei Xian had found the right person, but you shouldn't have been with Fei Xian before getting married. Han Yongzia turned around, glanced at Li Kuo, and said coldly, get out. Han Yongzia sighed, turned her eyes to Su Yang, and said coldly, Su Yang, I already know about you being Su Xiantian. Su Yang's heart warmed, and he held his wife's hand tightly, showed a loving smile to Li Feixuan, and then met Han Yongzia's gaze. Auntie, it doesn't matter. Han Yongzia said coldly, you look like this. If I marry my concubine to you, I'm afraid it won't be long before you become indifferent to her, right? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Urban Super Dude. Author, Eagle in the Desert. Chapter 423. Damn it. Su Yang was shocked when he saw Li Kuo coming and going. Damn it, father-in-law, and mother-in-law are not wild birds and beasts, so why are they so scared? I despise you. Su Yang. Han Yongzia stared at Su Yang and said coldly, don't think about it, answer my question, what does the concubine's announcement mean to you? Mom. Seeing this, concubine Li wanted to stop her mother. Don't say anything either, Han Yongzia scolded, if you don't ask clearly today, I will never allow you to meet Su Yang again in the future. Seeing how stubborn her mother was, Li Feixuan stopped saying anything and just held Su Yang's hand harder. Feeling his wife's nervousness, Su Yang lowered his head and comforted her gently, wife, don't worry, I will take care of this matter. Li Feixuan's mood immediately relaxed, and a smile appeared on her beautiful face. Han Yongzia saw the scene and recognized Su Yang in her heart. In fact, she didn't mean to make things difficult for Su Yang. As a mother, who doesn't want their daughter to marry a reliable person and live happily for the rest of her life? The reason why Han Yongzia looked down on Su Yang at this moment was to test Su Yang. First, she wanted to see Su Yang's temperament and see if Su Yang would reveal his true nature and become furious if she made things difficult for him. If Su Yang collides with him, it means that Su Yang has a bad character, or at least a bad temper. If concubine Xian follows him, she will definitely suffer in the future. Su Yang was not angry now, but had a smile on his face and even comforted Fei Xian. This is enough to show that Su Yang's temper is still good, and the first hurdle has been passed. But Han Yongzia also wanted to hear Su Yang's answer about her daughter's status in Su Yang's heart. This point is very important. And at this moment, Su Yang met Han Yongzia's gaze and said in a neither humble nor condescending manner, as for your question, my answer now is not important. I can tell you that concubine Xian is unique in my heart. She is the one I love most. But these words are empty and meaningless. You may not believe them. Su Yang held Li Feixuan's hand tightly, looked at Li Feixuan, and said sternly, Auntie, it's up to you to see what I do in the future. If I make Feixuan unhappy, I am willing to accept any punishment from you. As for Fei Xian and I having sex that night, we just fell in love deeply and did what we should do. It doesn't mean that I treat Fei Xian as a plaything. Su Yang said affectionately, because I love her and she loves me too. I know that from now on, her man can only be me. I am also willing to take care of her for the rest of her life and give her happiness. Therefore, I take away her first time and have a clear conscience. Su Yang. When Li Feixuan heard this, she was moved to tears. She threw herself directly into Su Yang's arms and hugged Su Yang tightly. Su Yang also hugged Li Feixuan, and the two hugged each other tightly. When Han Yongzia saw this scene, she suddenly smiled with relief. Obviously, she was quite satisfied with Su Yang's answer. Some things cannot be adulterated. From Su Yang's eyes, Han Yongzia can see her full love for her daughter. Therefore, she was very pleased that she truly accepted Su Yang, and her expression softened. Okay, I'm not ashamed to hug you in front of your parents. Han Yongzia said with a smile, it's almost 11 o'clock. It's time to have lunch later. Su Yang, please stay and eat before leaving. And Su Yang let go of Li Feixuan, met Han Yongzia's gaze, and said with a smile, did my answer pass the test? What did you call me? Han Yongzia did not answer directly, but asked instead. Li Kekai smiled and said, she couldn't wait to find Suzing, she was counting on Suzing to lead her to the promotion. Li Kekai curled her lips and saw that all the potato chips were almost eaten, so she did not continue the topic, but asked, brother-in-law, where is my little brother from Zeng? I haven't seen him for a few days and I miss him. Haha, I haven't tried my mother-in-law's cooking yet. I just want to try it today. Su Yang said while eating, you betrayed me and told your mother-in-law what happened that night. This half bag of potato chips can be regarded as your apology. At around 12 noon, dinner finally started. Although at his level, he doesn't have much need for food and can only eat once every half month, he is still looking forward to his mother-in-law's private dishes. It's fine if you don't eat. I can eat more. I won't eat. I often eat the food my mother cooks. It's not unusual for me. Didn't you just say that you were not married yet, so you asked me to call you? I haven't eaten in the morning, so I need to take a nap first. Just now was just now, and now is now. Han Yongzia smiled softly and said, Su Yang, you kid, you know clearly that you have passed the test, but you still pretend to be stupid with me, right? What aunt? I call her mother-in-law, Han Yongzia said seriously. Li Feixuan nodded, said goodbye to Su Yang, and walked into the kitchen with Han Yongzia. You want him to take you to Jimin Black Market to rob, right? Su Yang asked. Accompanied by Li Feixuan, Su Yang walked into the restaurant. When he saw the dishes on the table, he was stunned, and the expectation in his eyes turned into astonishment. After the two left, Li Kekai said with a smile, brother-in-law, you are in a good mood. Li Kuowu and Han Yongzia had already put the food on the table. Han Yongzia smiled, and then said, you can rest in the living room, Feixuan, follow me to the kitchen, I will teach you a few special dishes. When you and Su Yang form a small family in the future, you can cook them for Su Yang. What robbery? Su Yang smiled softly, then walked over and snatched Li Kekai's potato chips. You. Su Yang smiled softly, then sat on the sofa, watching TV and waiting for lunch. My mother doesn't cook easily, but she cooks very well, especially her specialty dishes. Li Kekai put on her slippers and stood up, and said angrily, you even grabbed my sister-in-law's snacks, how shameless are you? Ha. Su Yang touched the bridge of his nose and said with a smile, my mother-in-law is wise, and my father-in-law is so lucky to marry you. Stop flattering. Su Yang smiled and said, okay, don't explain. Forget about those things. Zink is at the Su family manor. If you want to see him, just go there. After leaving a word, Li Kekai hurriedly ran out of the living room. Fried wolfberry with green pepper, wolfberry egg drop soup, wolfberry with Beijing sauce, braised wolfberry, all are wolfberry. And Li Kekai hurriedly explained, what happened before has nothing to do with me. He was determined to be a gangster. Aren't you staying for lunch? Yeah, brother-in-law, I'll leave first. Cut. Urban Super Dude. Author, Eagle in the Desert. Chapter 424. Su Yang was dumbfounded. Is this the wolfberry feast that my father-in-law said? Although I don't know if it tastes good or not, I am strong and strong, so I need to eat this. Su Yang, sit down quickly. Don't stand, it's too restrictive. We will be a family soon, Han Yongzia said with a smile. Since accepting Su Yang, her attitude towards Su Yang has undergone a huge change. Sooner or later, his daughter will leave the Li family and marry into the Su family. Han Yongzia understood that only if she was good to her uncle would love Fei Xian more, so she would naturally not ignore Su Yang. Okay, thank you mother-in-law for the hospitality. Su Yang paused, and then sat next to Li Feixuan after he realized what he was doing. Eat, these dishes were cooked by me and Fei Xian, please eat more, Han Yongzia greeted with a smile. Okay. Su Yang smiled softly, then picked up the chopsticks, but couldn't put his hands on it. He really didn't know which dish to pick. Why, Su Yang, there's nothing you like to eat? Han Yongzia asked. Mother-in-law. Su Yang touched the bridge of his nose and said with a wry smile, well, actually, I don't like eating wolfberry. I just eat rice for lunch today. I'd better leave this to my father-in-law. He is weak and needs nourishment more than I do. You brat, what are you talking about? When Li Kuowu next to him heard this, he suddenly looked embarrassed and said with a dark face, your father-in-law, I am as strong as an ox, and I don't usually eat wolfberry. Ox. Unexpectedly, when Han Yongzia heard this, she said sarcastically, Li Kuowu, you are referring to the snail, it is slow and slow all day long. Ahem. Li Kuowu became even more embarrassed. He tugged on Han Yongzia's sleeve and whispered, Yongzia, Please save some face for me in front of my uncle. Han Yongzia stopped talking. Su Yang and Li Feixuan next to them laughed out loud when they saw this scene. Su Yang. Seeing this, Han Yongzia looked at Su Yang and said seriously, "Why are you laughing? Don't think I don't know. That morning you walked out of concubine Xian's room holding onto the wall. You are no better than your father-in-law. Eat more wolf berries. It will be good for you and concubine Xian," Han Yongzia said seriously. This time it was Su Yang's turn to be embarrassed. Forced by his mother-in-law's gaze, he had no choice but to pick up a braised wolfberry and put it into his mouth. "Look at you, you are so polite, eating wolfberry, you have to use this." Han Yongzia smiled, then handed Su Yang a spoon, and then said, "Take the spoon and eat with it. Don't hold the wall next time. It will be embarrassing if word spreads." Su Yang wanted to find a crack in the ground and crawl in, but his mother-in-law spoke, so he had to take the spoon and eat it in big mouthfuls. Li Feixuan watched from the side and did not stop him. Instead, she persuaded Su Yang to eat more. She felt that if her mother didn't say anything, Su Yang should eat more wolfberries. Lunch lasted for dozens of minutes and was finally over. Afterwards, Su Yang, Li Feixuan, and their mother-in-law sat in the living room watching TV. As for Li Kuowu, he went to the kitchen to wash the dishes and chop sticks skillfully. "Mother-in-law." Su Yang looked at his father-in-law's busy figure and suddenly felt distressed, so he said, "I'll go help my father-in-law." "Need not." Han Yongzia shook her head and said, "Su Yang, you have to remember that a gentleman is far away from the kitchen. You should not interfere with matters in the kitchen from now on." Su Yang touched the bridge of his nose and said with a wry smile, "Then father-in-law. He's different from you." Han Yongzia said seriously, "You are a person who does great things, and your future achievements are limitless. You should not let the kitchen limit you. Your father-in-law is destined to be mediocre in his life. To tell you the truth, he usually cooks. Today he only cooks, let him wash the dishes, and he is already happy." Li Feixuan smiled and said, "By the way, Su Yang, didn't you say before that you had found Zhang Shui's whereabouts? If you have time, take her back to Jiangbei." At this time, Han Yongzia looked at Su Yang and talked about business. "Are your two children okay now?" Han Yongzia stared at Su Yang and said solemnly, "I will make you pay a heavy price." Li Feixuan lowered her head and said shyly, "If you talk about this again, I will ignore you. Now that Feixuan is willing to accept Zhang Shui, I naturally have no objection." Um. Damn it, does your father-in-law usually have such a miserable life? Marriage, what does it bring to a man? After all, it is the father-in-law who takes care of everything." Su Yang. Okay, I won't mention it. What's there to be embarrassed about?" Han Yongzia said sternly. Zhang Shui hit the ground running and gave birth to a pair of golden boys and girls. "Concubine Xian, you have to prove that you are more fertile than her. Mom will believe you." Han Yongzia nodded slightly, then said, "One more thing, when will you and Feixuan plan to have a child?" "Honey, I have some things to deal with in the next few days, and I'm afraid I won't be able to accompany you." "That's good." Han Yongzia continued, "Besides, with your status and strength, it is normal for you to have so many women around you. Only excellent men will attract crazy bees and butterflies." "Mom." Concubine Li suddenly blushed and said shyly after hearing this, "Why did you suddenly mention this matter?" Li Feixuan wanted to know what Su Yang was doing, but felt that she shouldn't ask so many questions, so she nodded and said, "Su Yang, no matter what you do, you must be careful." Half an hour later, Su Yang remembered that Chifen was still at home, waiting for him to deliver clothes, so he stood up and said goodbye. "Haha, wife, don't worry about me, no one in the world can do anything to me now," Su Yang said with confidence. Han Yongzia smiled and said, I can't blame you for what happened 5 years ago. Fei Xian told me that you also fell into someone else's trap. Mom. Su Yang was stunned and said hesitantly, Mother-in-law, you already know. As for whether I have the strength, haha, believe it or not, I have already told you anyway, Han Yongzia added with a smile. Han Yongzia nodded and said, Fei Xian told me that you had a relationship with that girl from the Zhang family, and she gave birth to a pair of twins, a boy and a boy, who are now 4 years old. Mother-in-law, even if you don't say it, I will do this. Fei Xian will always be my favorite person, Su Yang promised seriously. Han Yongzia smiled, then changed the topic and talked about something else with Su Yang. Su Yang couldn't help but think of a sentence, and was filled with emotions. However, I want you to promise that no matter how many women you think you have, your love for Fei Xian must remain consistent and you must not let her down, otherwise. Immediately afterwards, Su Yang and Li Feixuan walked outside the Li family manor together. Su Yang held Li Feixuan's hand and promised, don't worry, when the matter is settled, I will return to Jiangbei and never be separated from you. Don't worry, I won't blame you. Mother-in-law, I. Su Yang was about to explain. Urban Super Dude. Author, Eagle in the Desert. Chapter 425. Okay, this matter should really be put on the agenda. Su Yang agreed and had already made plans to go to Mount Tai first and then to Wannan to welcome his mother and Qian Shangxiu back after the trip to Wuodang. Next. Su Yang and Li Feixuan got tired of each other for a while, and finally parted reluctantly. Li Feixuan turned around and walked into the manor, and happened to meet Li Kuowa coming out. Dad, what are you doing out here? Li Feixuan asked curiously. I'll see Su Yang off. After all, he is our uncle. Li Kuowa smiled and said, Feixuan, please go in. I have something to say to Su Yang alone. It's not good for men to have a conversation with you here. Dad, please don't embarrass Su Yang. Li Feixuan thought Li Kuowa wanted to tell Su Yang to be good to him, so he gave a reminder and then entered the manor. After watching his daughter walk away, Li Kuowa hurried to Su Yang. At this moment, Su Yang had already gotten into the car and was about to drive away when the engine started. Li Kuowa walked to the car and patted the car glass. Seeing this, Su Yang lowered the car glass and smiled softly, Father-in-law, what can I do? Unlock the car quickly, I want to get in the car, Li Kuowa said excitedly, as if he couldn't wait. Get in the car, Su Yang asked doubtfully, Father-in-law, what are you doing in my car? Of course we're going to Jade Finger Wonderland. Su Yang said with a dark face, Father-in-law, you stopped my car because you just wanted me to take you to Jade Finger Wonderland. No, Li Kuowa shook his head. Then what else? When Su Yang was about to ask what his father-in-law's purpose was, Li Kuowa suddenly added, I still want to go to the nightclub, Su Yang, this is what you promised me, don't go back on it. Well. Su Yang was stunned immediately, with a black line on his face. His emotional father-in-law still remembered this incident. Father-in-law. When this matter was brought up, Su Yang said dissatisfiedly, when you faced your mother-in-law before, you didn't even dare to fart. Why are you so embarrassed to ask me to take you to the club now? Then I don't care, let me get in the car quickly. Your mother-in-law has a lunch break. I have to go home before she wakes up, Li Kuowa said hurriedly. That's it? Su Yang hesitated. He didn't know about his father-in-law's family status before, but now that he knows how humble his father-in-law is, he doesn't dare to take his father-in-law to the club. Of course, this is also for the sake of my father-in-law. After all, there is no airtight wall in the world. If the mother-in-law discovers that the father-in-law went to the club, then the mother-in-law is not allowed to break the father-in-law's legs. It's scary to think about. With this thought in his mind, Su Yang looked at the gate of the manor and pretended to be surprised and said, "Hey, mother-in-law, when did you come? Did you hear what my father-in-law said just now?" "What? Yongzia is here." When Li Kuo heard this, his expression suddenly changed. He knelt down with a thump and grabbed his ears with both hands. He didn't even dare to raise his head and said in fear, "Yongzia, listen to my explanation. It's not like what you see. I didn't want to go to the club, it was Su Yang. This guy insisted on dragging me to the club for a massage and bathing. He wanted me to relax, but I refused. But for the sake of his filial piety, I didn't want to disappoint him, so I..." Li Kuo explained with fear, but when he looked up, Han Yongzia was nowhere to be seen, and he realized that he had been deceived. Su Yang. Li Kuo was furious and stood up quickly, only to find that Su Yang had driven away. He immediately gritted his teeth and said, "You kid, you are so unkind." Su Yang drove quickly and quickly arrived at a large supermarket and bought several sets of clothes for girls. From spring clothes to winter clothes, from uniforms to casual clothes, from outside to inside, hundreds of thousands are spent on various items. Everything I bought was from famous brands, so Shufen wouldn't have to worry about having nothing to wear in the future. And Su Yang also selected clothes worth hundreds of thousands of yuan for himself. Anyway, it would be out of the way if put in a storage ring. Especially the special kind of work clothes, which came in small, boxy packages. He bought hundreds of them at once, of various brands and styles, so that in the future he would no longer be afraid of women using the excuse of not having protective measures. After finishing all this, Su Yang went to the underground garage and prepared to drive back to the riverside villa. But at this moment, a call from Wanan suddenly came in. The caller ID read Qin Shangxiu. Su Yang called Qian Shangxiu before, and the person who answered the phone was Su Yuyu. He asked Yuyu to tell Qian Shangxiu to take the time to give him a call. Su Yang suddenly realized it, and then smiled and said, "So, you have been acting with me. Now that you know, it's easy for me to explain." Su Yang Qian Shangxiu responded. "That's not right. In your opinion, shouldn't I be Su Xiantian?" Qian Shangxiu showed a smile, and then said, "Although your Su family is in trouble now. Just ask, I can tell you, I won't hide it," Qian Shangxiu said softly. Su Yang couldn't help laughing, and then said, "Shuer, I have many doubts in my heart. I wonder if it would be convenient for you to answer them." When Qian Shangxiu heard this, she laughed out loud, wiped the tears from her eyes, and said, "Su Yang, you are still the same as before, you can always make me happy with your unique angle. If you want to speak, tears will flow first." "Well, I know everything. The Su family is from Kunlun, and my great-grandfather is Su Wazi." Su Yang nodded. Su Yang didn't know what to say to a woman who had given birth to 2 children for herself. Thousands of mountains of snow. Puff. Snow, Shuer. You hid your identity, came to me, and didn't resist me doing that to you when I was drunk. Why exactly? Su Yang smiled softly and said, "Shuer, when did you know my identity? I can answer this question for you." This doubt has been hidden in Su Yang's heart for a long time, and he still can't figure it out. The phone call ended, and both parties chose silence. "I guessed it the first time we met," Qian Shangxiu said truthfully. After that, Su Yang became busy and gradually forgot about this matter. Qian Shangxiu continued, "So I deliberately approached you, hoping to form a good relationship with you and create cause and effect. In this way, when you rule the world, the 9-sect alliance will be taken care of by you." Su Yang nodded lightly, and then asked the first question, "Shuer, since you are the leader of the 9-sect alliance, you must have been an ancient warrior 5 years ago." Su Yang didn't hesitate at all and decisively chose to answer. "But someone told my grandpa that the Su family will definitely return to its peak and dominate the world in the future, and you, Su Yang, will become the overlord of the earth sooner or later. Su Yang smiled and then asked doubtfully, "What did you just call me?" "Aren't you the same?" Qian Shangxiu asked with a smile. Qian Shangxiu hesitated for a moment, and then said, "Su Yang, actually I had a purpose when I first approached you. The origins of your Su family are extraordinary. I wonder if Grandpa Su has confessed to you." She put the phone to her ear, listening to Su Yang's breathing, with tears in her eyes. "Today, I finally got a call from Qian Shangxiu." After being silent for a long time, Su Yang showed a smile and said softly, "The phone bill is quite expensive. We don't talk. I feel so embarrassed." "Haha." On the other side of the phone, Qian Shangxiu was sitting in the main hall, with no one around. "You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Urban Super Dude. Author, Eagle in the Desert. Chapter 426. I see. After listening to Qian Shangxiu's explanation, Su Yang suddenly realized that it was no wonder that the other party would sacrifice his innocence to get closer to him. However, Su Yang had another question in his mind and couldn't help but ask, "Shu'er, who predicted that the Su family would rise again?" "Tianji sect, old master Qian Shangxiu didn't hide anything. It's him again." A smile appeared on Su Yang's lips, and he murmured to himself, "It seems that we must go to Wudang Mountain. That old guy should know the whereabouts of my great-grandfather, and even the unknown news about the cultivation of cultivation, or he may also know." "Su Yang, do you have anything else to ask, at this time?" Qian Shangxiu asked. "Yes, but they are just minor issues. When we meet, I will have a good chat with you." Su Yang smiled. Qian Shangxiu nodded, then smiled, and said, "Now it's my turn to ask you. I also have a few questions that I want to ask you." "Haha." Su Yang smiled and said, "Shu'er, just ask." "Su Yang, I want to know how you survived last time when you were seriously injured and should have died," Qian Shangxiu asked curiously. At the beginning, she believed that Su Yang had no chance of survival, and even chose to leave, not wanting to see Su Yang die with her own eyes, lest she feel even more sad. But who would have expected that Su Yang would come back alive, which was beyond her knowledge. "There is a doctor in Jiangbei named Hua Shimiao. He is my apprentice. I have a good relationship with him." Su Yang said truthfully, "Hua Shimiao has an ancestral ancient elixir that can bring the dead back to life. It is very miraculous. When he saw that I was dying, he fed me the ancient elixir and I was able to recover." "That's it, Su Yang, you are very lucky." Qian Shangxiu smiled. "That's natural. If I'm unlucky, can you hit me twice?" Su Yang said with a playful smile. "You are shameless." When Qian Shangxiu heard this, her jade face turned crimson, and her cold and frosty attitude was completely different. After a pause for a few seconds, Qian Shangxiu said, "Stop talking nonsense, I still have questions about your strength. 5 years ago, you were just an ordinary person and had never set foot in martial arts. Why did you suddenly become so powerful after not seeing me for 5 years?" Su Yang thought about it for a moment, and then said, "Shu'er, I am a descendant of the Kunlun Su family, and my great-grandfather is Su Wuzi. Do you need me to explain the rest?" "No." Hearing the word Su Wuzi, Qian Shangxiu already had the answer in his heart, and then asked, "By the way, Su Yang, is Su Xing with you?" Su Yang gritted his teeth and said, "This little bastard is so naughty. He thinks about finding a wife all day long. He even became a gangster a few days ago. I'm so angry." Giggle. Hearing this, Qian Shangxiu couldn't help but smile and said, "Su Yang, I have been taking care of them both these past few years, so it's time to give you a headache." "Shu'er, thank you for your hard work, but don't worry, from now on Xing and Yu will be children with a father. Su Yang made a promise, I promise to bring them up and teach them the principles of life. You don't have to work so hard. The Nine Gates Alliance has a transcendent status in the world of ancient martial arts. As the leader of the alliance, I have been invited by Wu Dane to be one of the top 10 referees of the 100 Sex Martial Arts competition. Take me back to Jiangbei. Qian Shangxiu continued, however, Su Yang, I really can't go back to Jiangbei now. I want to stay in Jufeng Mountain. Hearing this, Qian Shangxiu said, the Palace of Medicine King chose you as its master because of your identity. You are the grandson of Shihan, the land of Zen. The Palace of Medicine wants to use you to get close to Mount Tai and climb up Mount Tai. A big tree, how can you agree to them? Qian Shangxiu explained, and then said, Su Yang, why did you represent the Medicine King Palace in the battle? Su Yang continued, Shuer, don't think too much. Fei Xian is a woman who understands the general situation. I didn't expect that concubine Xian would ignore the past grudges and choose to forgive me. Su Yang smiled softly, and then said, Shuer, you don't have to worry, I know it well. Let's not talk about whether you can achieve results or not. The key point is that your other identity is too special. Qian Shangxiu said worriedly, this year's 100 Sex Martial Arts competition is different from previous years. This time, many talented young people from Shuezhang will emerge from the sky, including many who are at the top of Tianzong. With your strength, you can even enter the top 10 not even qualified. What number do you have? Qian Shangxiu was moved, there were tears in her eyes, and she wanted to cry. She regarded me as her best friend at the beginning, but I did something sorry for her, and you. It's not the right time. Don't worry, there will be someone with me. As long as she is here, no one in the ancient martial arts world can hurt me at all. Su Yang, I have one last question. Su Yang, you are confused. At this time, Qian Shangxiu suddenly asked, I saw a young talent sent by the Medicine King Palace on the list of the 100 Sex Martial Arts competition. Your name is Su Xiantian. Is that you? No. Qian Shangxiu said with concern, you are Su Wuji's great-grandson, and Su Wuji is a taboo in the ancient martial arts world. If your identity is exposed, you will become the target of public criticism. Participating in the 100 Sex Martial Arts competition will be like a sheep in a tiger's mouth. Now that I am the leader of the Nine Gates Alliance, I have a heavy burden on my shoulders, and I cannot let it go rashly. Su Yang said truthfully, Fei Xian has long since let go. She has also accepted Yu and Xing, and has mentioned it many times and asked me to take you back to her. Also, after I finish handling the matters at hand, I will go to Jufeng Mountain in southern Anhui and take you back to Jiangbei. We will live happily. Su Yang smiled softly. Just now, Fei Xian told me to bring you back as soon as possible. Su Yang smiled and said, Shuer, to be honest, I am already the master of the Medicine King Palace. This time I represent the Medicine King Palace in the 100 Sex Martial Arts competition to promote the prestige of the Medicine King Palace. You also know the origin of my mother. Qian Shangxiu said seriously, Su Yang, listen to me, you must not participate in the 100 Sex Martial Arts competition, otherwise once exposed, the consequences will be disastrous. Su Yang said confidently, who said there is no one to protect me? Qian Shangxiu refused again, then thought of Li Feixuan, and asked, Su Yang, Feixuan, is she still angry with me? Su Yang reacted, nodded, and said, well, it's me, wife. How come you have a list? Su Yang fell silent when he heard this explanation, but he didn't insist anymore. The Medicine King Palace has been weak for a long time, and it does not have the strong foundation to protect you. Shuer. When Qian Shangxiu heard this, he paused affectionately, then shook his head and said, Su Yang, let's talk about this later. It's not appropriate now. What's wrong, Schwer? Don't worry, as long as I want to do something, no one can stop me, Su Yang said firmly. Urban Super Dude. Author, Eagle in the Desert. Chapter 427. Shifen successfully built the foundation and became invincible. When going to Wudang Mountain this time, Su Yang will bring Shifen, who has transformed into a human form, so he is naturally not worried about the forces with ulterior motives in the ancient martial arts world. Do you have any background? Qian Shangxiu paused when he heard this, and then murmured to himself, about 20 years ago, Su Shenbing, the genius of the Su family, was born, participated in the 100 sex martial arts competition that year, and pulled out the first place. At that time, Uncle Su announced his family status, and everyone knew that he was a descendant of Suwuji. However, no force in the entire ancient martial arts world dared to touch Uncle Su. There is no other reason than that those traveling with Uncle Su have a strong foundation in the Su family. That man, with his own power, shocked hundreds of sections in the place of Zen, between the mountains and the sea, deep in the clouds and mists. The three giants all lowered their heads. Qian Shangxiu obviously knew a lot about the Su family and asked with a smile, Su Yang, can the information you are talking about be that of the senior who was more than 20 years old? No. Su Yang shook his head, and then said, but it's almost the same. Anyway, you don't have to worry about me. Ah, that's good. Qian Shangxiu breathed a sigh of relief, and then said, Su Yang, we won't talk much on the phone. I am the referee of the Beizong competition, and I will also go to Wudang. We will talk again then. Good. Su Yang smiled softly and said, by the way, Schwer, can you take Yu to Wudang with you? I really want to meet her. Okay, Yu is also obsessed with you. This girl always talks about you. Qian Shangxiu did not refuse, and hung up the phone after saying goodbye to Su Yang. Wudang Mountain, haha, a lot of things can be solved this time. A playful smile appeared on Su Yang's lips. He put his phone into the storage ring and drove out of the mall. It didn't take long. Su Yang appeared at the riverside villa. As soon as he entered the room, Shifen wrapped herself in sheets, jumped out of the bed, and threw herself directly into Su Yang's arms. Master! Shifen rubbed her little head against Su Yang's chest, showing a satisfied smile. Ahem! Su Yang touched the bridge of his nose, coughed twice, and then said, Shifen, be honest, go back to bed and lie down. Gee, master, I knew you had thoughts about me, so I will lie down obediently and wait for you. Shifen smiled charmingly, then her figure flickered, and the next moment she appeared on the bed, and then the ethereal girl's voice sounded, Master, come and play. Playing with you, big-headed ghost. Su Yang had a dark face, and with a thought, he threw a set of clothes on the bed, resisted the impulse in his heart, and said, put on your clothes, I'll wait for you outside. Master, don't you watch me getting dressed, Shifen said charmingly. No. Don't look. Su Yang refused, his face turned red from Shifen, and he turned to leave the room. Really boring. Shifen complained, and then said, Master, don't go out, I'm already dressed. Su Yang nodded, then turned his head to look at Shifen, and his face turned red instantly. At this moment, the clothes he gave were still beside the bed, and even the sheets had been thrown aside by Shifen. Now Shifen was lying on the bed, looking very charming. Master, if you look at her body, she will be yours from now on. Shifen smiled softly. You lied to me. Su Yang gritted his teeth and said, stop making trouble, put on your clothes quickly, I want to talk to you about business. All right. Seeing that Su Yang was serious, Shifen had no choice but to nod and quickly put on her clothes. At this time, Shifen put on a nurse's uniform, with her hat on from top to bottom. Her figure is exquisite and graceful, and this outfit looks perfect on her. Coupled with a fluffy tail, exposed and swinging from side to side, it adds to the style. Beautiful. This thing is so tempting and forces people to make mistakes. No wonder those powerful bosses in the Xiantian immortal realm all like to raise a fox fairy. Who can withstand this thing? Su Yang's eyes widened. Fortunately, he had the determination, otherwise Shifen would have taken maternity leave in 10 months. Master, do I look good? Shifen moved her body and put her 2 little hands on her cheeks, making a cute gesture. Nice. Su Yang nodded, and then his eyes fell on Shifen's tail, wondering, Shifen, why is your tail still there? Can't you put it away? Abel. Su Yang said seriously, don't ask so many questions, just follow me all the way. Your duty is to protect me. Young Master Su, one day without seeing you is like 3 autumns apart. I miss you so much. Young Master Su, are you there? Your good brother has come to say goodbye to you. But when young Master Wang hugged his master, instead of pushing him away, the master hugged Wang Fuegui. Why are you here, Mr. Wang? Shifen agreed, then a fierce light flashed in her eyes, and she said coldly, if anyone dissatisfied the master, master please give Shifen whatever instructions you want, Shifen will make those people's lives worse than death. Shifen said with a smile, our 9-tailed fox has 9 tails. The tail is very important to us. It can be used to attract the opposite sex, so I kept one. Master, are you satisfied with my tail? Well, I'll leave it to you for the trip to Wuodang. Su Yang smiled. This scene made Shifen very uncomfortable, and a strong sense of frustration arose in her heart. Seeing Su Yang, Wang Fuegui rushed over and hugged Su Yang tightly with both arms. But I don't want to. Shifen did not refuse. With a thought, the tail behind her butt disappeared, and then she asked, Master, where do you want to take me? Yeah. I hugged my master, but he pushed me away. Shifen is not convinced. Okay, master's order is absolute. I will never let anyone harm master. Su Yang smiled softly, and then hugged Wang Fuegui with his backhand, showing deep brotherly love. What are you doing there? I will definitely obey my master's orders. But Su Yang paused, then smiled, and said, Shifen, Mr. Wang should be familiar to you. You once stayed in his dog farm for a while. Come on, come with me to have a look. Yes, Shifen nodded gently. Immediately afterwards, Wuodang, Su Yang said matter-of-factly. Su Yang touched the bridge of his nose, and then said, however, you should put your tail away. I will take you on a long trip tomorrow. It is best for you to completely disguise yourself as a human to avoid unnecessary trouble. At this moment, a familiar voice suddenly came from outside. The person who spoke was none other than young Master Wang and Wang Fuegui. Protect me. Ha ha. Am I not as attractive as a man? Su Yang thought of what happened that morning and felt rather embarrassed. He coughed tactically and then asked, does your tail have other functions? Full, satisfied. Shifen smiled charmingly and said, the tail can be used for more than just scratching. Cough. Su Yang and Shifen walked down to the 3rd floor together, and soon saw Wang Fuegui outside the villa. Urban Super Dude. Author, Eagle in the Desert. Chapter 428. Why? He is a man with no breasts and no figure, so why should he cuddle with his master? Shifen stood behind Su Yang and looked at Wang Fuegui coldly, her eyes full of jealousy. Young Master Su, these days in Kyoto, I think your liver hurts. You don't know, no matter how fragrant the roast duck in Kyoto is, no matter how warm Lu Shushan's quilt is, they can't stop me from missing you. Wang Fuegui looked at Su Yang with red eyes and said affectionately, so, even if Kyoto and Jiangbei are thousands of miles apart, more than half of China, I have to come to see you. I feel panicked when I can't see you. Yes, you are my shot in the arm, you are my lifeblood. Lifeblood? Fuck you. When Su Yang heard these three words, his face suddenly darkened and he pushed Wang Fuegui away. Damn it. Although the first few sentences are disgusting, at least they are sincere. What does the last sentence mean? You are the lifeblood, Su Yang replied with a dark face. Ha ha ha. Wang Fuegui smiled happily and was about to say something when he suddenly saw Shifen behind Su Yang. His eyes widened and he said, nurse outfit. Damn it, shit. Young Master Su, you are so good at enjoying yourself. You actually hide at home and play with your uniform in broad daylight. It's exciting just thinking about it. Wang Fuegui looked at Shifen for a few times, his eyes widened, and he couldn't help but said, Tate is so beautiful, this figure, this face, especially the eyes, so charming and charming. Young Master Su, this is such a top quality product. Where did you find it? I'm so jealous that my hair is purple. Young Master Wang, is it that exaggerated? Su Yang said with a smile. Certainly. Wang Fuegui just glanced at Shifen. Although he was reluctant to let go, he still looked away and said seriously, this is the first time I have seen such a charming and beautiful woman. In terms of appearance, there are several women I have met who are not inferior to her. Just like sister-in-law Fei Xian, her appearance is slightly better than this little nurse. Wang Fuegui commented, but her charming and alluring temperament, no woman I have ever seen can compare to her. I can guarantee that any man will be tempted when he sees her. Since it's so beautiful, why don't you look at it more? Su Yang smiled softly. Young Master Su. Who do you think I, Wang Fuegui, am? Unexpectedly, when Wang Fuegui heard this, he immediately became serious and said seriously, although I, Wang Fuegui, am not a big deal, I also know that you are welcome if you are a friend's wife, but, don't bully your friend's wife. She is your woman, and you are my best brother. It is normal for me to look at her. If I keep looking at her, what is going on? Wang Fuegui gritted his teeth and said, Young Master Su, I didn't expect that we have known each other for so long and you don't even understand me. Huh, I'm going to be angry. This. Su Yang touched the bridge of his nose and said comfortingly, okay, Mr. Wang, you are overthinking. I just said it casually. I'll just apologize. That's pretty much it. Wang Fuegui smiled when he heard this, then put his arm around Su Yang's shoulders and whispered, Young Master Su, as a brother, I have to warn you. You'd better keep such a charming woman by your side at all times, otherwise she might cuckold you. After all, a woman whose every move is full of temptation is definitely not a fuel-efficient lamp. Wang Fuegui whispered, I estimate that without going through the baptism of hundreds of men, you won't be able to develop such a sow temperament. It's too tempting. Hundreds, men. When Su Yang heard this, he showed an indifferent smile. In Shifen's situation, he knew better than anyone else that the nine-tailed ghost fox's strongest method was to charm all living beings. After saying that, Su Yang walked aside. Wang Fuegui said seriously, he had a beautiful wife named Pen, who ended up getting close to a senior official from Ximen and poisoned brother Dallin to death. But, Young Master Su, do you remember that guy named Wu? At this time, Wang Fuegui asked. Shifen had long disliked Wang Fuegui. When she heard the master's order, her face immediately burst into laughter and she slowly walked towards Wang Fuegui. Before Wang Fuegui finished speaking, Shifen took action. She raised her slender hand slightly, and there was a terrifying force that suddenly pressed towards Wang Fuegui. Wang Fuegui looked at Su Yang with envy, and then when he saw Shifen walking towards him, he reminded him, Little nurse, I'm warning you, don't come close to me. Yes, master. Boom. A smile appeared on Shifen's lips, but she kept walking. Nature. Little nurse, I have already reached the 8th level of Qi training. At what level are you able to knock me away with one palm? Wang Fuegui asked curiously. In fact, Shifen is still an untouched girl. No, it should be said that she is an untouched vixen. Wang Fuegui stood with his hands behind his back. He had the temperament of a worldly expert, and he said calmly, for the sake of you being the eldest daughter of Su, I will spare you this one time and won't fight with you, so as not to hurt your harmony. Wang Fuegui hurriedly got up from the ground, his tinfoil perm and hairstyle were messed up, and his eyes were full of disbelief. Little nurse, are you also a cultivator? You really dare to think that you can't expect me, okay? Wu, Su Yang frowned and said, who are you referring to? But who else could it be? Of course it's brother Dallin. Really? Shifen knew the relationship between Wang Fuegui and Su Yang, so she did not injure Wang Fuegui, but just knocked him away. Now I am so strong that the air buzzes when I raise my hand. You can't beat me. With a muffled sound, Wang Fuegui's body instantly flew backwards and stopped after being 3 or 4 meters away. Young Master Su, by the knowledge of Shi Mingjian, you must be careful. If this little nurse Hong Xian comes out of the wall and joins forces with the wild men outside to poison you to death, it will be a tragedy, Wang Fuegui said seriously. Said the matter. Su Yang rolled his eyes at Wang Fuegui, turned to Shifen next to him, and said angrily, Shifen, I can't stand it when he slanders you like this. Go ahead and teach him a lesson. Shifen didn't answer, she smiled, and then continued to attack, pressing against Wang Fuegui with huge force. What do you think? Shifen smiled softly. Wang Fuegui held his head high and said arrogantly, little nurse, even if I stand still, you can't hurt me. You must be owner. Therefore, after Shifen returned to her ancestors and became a 9-tailed ghost fox, she was born with super charm, so Wang Fuegui made this judgment. My darn thing. Grass. Damn it, Mr. Su, master and slave, you guys are playing really well. Next time I have a chance, I will give it a try with my wife. Wang Fuegui said firmly, young Master Su is a powerful cultivator. If you slept with him, you must also be a cultivator. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Urban Super Dude. Author, Eagle in the Desert. Chapter 429. Boom. 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 In front of Shifen, Wang Fuegui was unable to fight back, and his body was rolling around on the ground, looking extremely embarrassed. Fuck, I was wrong. Young Master Su, please tell her to stop. Can't I apologize? Wang Fuegui knew that he was no match for Shifen and quickly begged for mercy. Okay, Shifen, stop, I want to talk to young Master Wang at this time. Su Yang smiled softly. Yes, Master. Shifen responded, showing a charming smile, and then stood behind Su Yang knowingly. Young Master Su, where did you find this woman? She is stronger than me now. It's incredible. Wang Fuegui got up from the ground, covered his waist, and limped to Su Yang's side. I won't tell you this for now. Su Yang's eyes fell on Wang Fuegui and couldn't help but ask, young Master Wang, have you had any adventures in Kyoto these 2 days? How come your realm has improved so much? Some time ago, Su Yang helped Wang Fuegui enter the ranks of cultivation. At that time, Wang Fuegui was only at the first level of Qi training and could barely compete with the Huajin realm. The last time he rescued Wang Fuegui in Kyoto, he was still at the first level of Qi training. But now, Wang Fuegui's body is full of spiritual energy, and his state has reached the 8th level of Qi training. In just a few days, he has crossed several small realms. This progress is simply incredible. Certainly. If there were enough spirit stones, Su Yang's progress would be faster than this, regardless of whether the realm was stable or unstable. But after all, Su Yang has the soul of the immortal emperor, while Wang Fuegui does not. It is a bit outrageous that he can continuously break down the barriers between small realms. What made Su Yang most curious was, where did Wang Fuegui get his spiritual energy? Haha! Young Master Su. Seeing Su Yang's puzzled face, Wang Fuegui spread his right arm and smiled gratefully, thanks to the hand you gave me. It's really strong. After I put it on that day, I felt my arms were warm and a little itchy. Wang Fuegui continued, at the beginning, I didn't care, but soon, I felt like I was about to break through. So, I found a room and followed the example of others in retreat. Unexpectedly, in one breath, I directly broke through the 7 minor realms and stepped onto the 8th level of Qi training. Wang Fuegui said in a show-off manner, how about it, young Master Su, am I strong enough? Sharp. Su Yang smiled softly, then carefully looked at some of Wang Fuegui's arms, and quickly came to a conclusion. The owner of this ancient arm must be a towering figure. Even after countless years after his death, there is still a powerful energy hidden in his arm. Only. This energy was hidden very deep, so Su Yang didn't notice it at first. But after the arm merged with Wang Fuegui, the energy appeared. Perhaps it was because he recognized Wang Fuegui's qualifications, or for other reasons. In short, that energy entered Wang Fuegui's body without any rejection at all. Wang Fuegui picked up a big bargain and took advantage of this to greatly increase his realm and reach the 8th level of Qi training. Young Master Wang. Su Yang looked at Wang Fuegui, and then reminded him seriously, you advanced too quickly, and your foundation is already a bit unstable. I know that there is still more than half of the energy in the arm, which can definitely help you reach the next level. But it's best not to advance any further during this period of time. You should stabilize your skills first and consolidate your realm. It will be of great benefit to your future, Su Yang said sternly. Wang Fuegui rarely became serious, nodded and said, young Master Su, thank you for reminding me. In fact, I have noticed that my realm is a bit unrealistic. So, after I set foot on the 8th level of Qi training last night, I stopped practicing and chose to leave. I plan to take a break for 2 months and then continue to absorb the spiritual energy in my arms. So best. Su Yang smiled and said, young Master Wang, I didn't expect you to be so lucky. It took me more than a month to break through to the 8th level of Qi training, but you did it in a few days. Hey, young Master Su, didn't I say that, thanks to the arm you gave me, you are my brother from now on? Wang Fuegui said with a flattering smile, when I become stronger, young Master Su, I guarantee that no one will dare to mess with you. Whoever wants to touch my best brother must step over my royal and wealthy corpse. At the end of the sentence, Wang Fuegui's expression became serious, and his eyes were full of determination and determination. No one would doubt the authenticity of this sentence. When Su Yang heard this, he was instantly moved. He knew that Wang Fuegui would really do that. At this moment, Wang Fu smiled contemptuously and said, if you really regard me as your brother, just ask your little nurse if she has any brothers or sisters. About family affection. About friendship. Ahem, slip of the tongue, slip of the tongue. Royal power and wealth. Su Yang smiled softly, and then said, young Master Wang, you just called yourself king, power and wealth. When did you change your name? Wang Fuegui looked disgusted, and then smiled and said, but my grandfather got this name. My grandfather is dead. I rashly removed the word rich, which is a bit disrespectful to him. What if my grandfather crawled out from the ground? If you fuck me, your balls will hurt. Young Master Su, are you moved by my royal power and wealth? If so, please introduce it to me. I want, young Master Su, you know. Only then did Su Yang understand the meaning of life. Young Master Wang, are you, really that good? At this point, Su Yang couldn't help but shudder. In his previous life, he was the Xiantian immortal emperor, who ruled the 9 heavens and 10 earths and ruled for eternity. There were only a few people in heaven and earth who were worthy of being his opponents. About love. But now, Su Yang catered to him. After all, the name Wang Quan Fugui sounded really good. But, so what? Su Yang truly experienced friendship, and it was a wonderful feeling to have a brother or sister who could be trusted with his life. Love, he asked for but could not get. Wang Fugui smiled proudly and said, "Young Master Su, how are you? Are you awesome or domineering?" Su Yang complained, then smiled playfully, "Wait, brothers and sisters, I can understand sisters, what do you want her brother to do? Even if he remembers it, it may be too late. After so many years, his relatives have long been turned into a pile of loess." Immortal Emperor Xiantian devoted himself to seeking the truth and followed in the footsteps of Empress Jing Huang all his life. Fuck you, Lao Sipi. Immortal Emperor Xiantian has been cultivating for countless years and has forgotten his origins. How can he talk about his relatives? So, I discussed it with Lu Shushan and kept the wealth and added the word power between the names. Wang Fugui doesn't sound good. It's too flattering. It sounds like a name from the 1980s and 1990s. It's so rubbish. Wang Fugui hurriedly explained, "Young Master Su, you can question me about anything, except my sexual orientation, which is straight. It sounds like the name of a swordsman, sharp and arrogant. Now, no matter how strong a person is, he can't stop loneliness, and he can't experience all kinds of emotions in the world. Immortal Emperor Xiantian has never experienced all kinds of emotions in the world. Although he has been arbitrary for eternity, he is still a loner and cannot escape the erosion of loneliness. In the Xiantian immortal realm, the weak are the strongest. He started from a humble background and has no big power to back him. He must be careful in everything. How can he dare to talk to others? How can he talk about friendship? Haha. Awesome, domineering, this name is unbeatable. With such a good brother, I will have no regrets in this life." Urban Super Dude. Author, Eagle in the Desert. Chapter 430. Young Master Su. After the chat and spanking was over, Wang Fugui looked at Su Yang and said with a serious face, "No more gossip. I came to you this time to say goodbye to you." Su Yang was stunned for a moment and asked doubtfully, "Farewell? Where are you going?" "Wu-Tang." Wang Fugui said seriously, "Perhaps you don't know. Every few years in the ancient martial arts world, there will be 100 martial arts competitions, and geniuses under the age of 40 are eligible to sign up. I got news that the day after tomorrow is the day when the 100 sex martial arts competition begins, and the location is set at Wudang Mountain." Wang Fugui continued, "I'm going to prepare today, and it's time to leave for Wudang tomorrow. I heard that the 100 sex competition is not a simple competition. All contestants have to sign a life and death certificate. If they die in the ring, their opponents will not bear any responsibility." Wang Fugui said with a complicated expression, "Young Master Su, this trip is extremely dangerous. I don't know if I will see you again." With that said, Wang Fugui gave Su Yang a hug. "100 sex compete in martial arts, of course I know." Su Yang was slightly startled, then asked, "Young Master Wang, are you going to participate in the 100 sex martial arts competition?" Why? Su Yang was very puzzled. "Because of Lu Shushan." Wang Fugui explained, "Last night, I went to Liu's house and met Lu Shushan's family. I know the identity of a cultivator and is quite sensitive, so I hid my strength and disguised myself as a master. Lu Shushan's family is not particularly satisfied with me and wants to break up Lu Shushan and me, Wang Fuegui said with a bitter smile. What the hell? Su Yang was immediately stunned and gritted his teeth and said, look down on my brothers and give them face. Mr. Wang, there is still time. I will dispatch a helicopter to take you directly into Liu's house and snatch Lu Shushan away. No, young Master Su, this will only make things more ugly. If a marriage wants to last, it must first get the blessing of the family. Wang Fuegui suddenly became serious and said seriously, a marriage without the blessing of family members will not be happy. Damn, what you said makes sense. Su Yang smiled. In fact, he was just joking. How could he really break into the Lu family? After pausing for a few seconds, Su Yang asked curiously, young Master Wang, the Lu family is just a small family. In order to curry favor with the Zhang family, they were willing to marry Lu Shushan into the Zhang family. And you, pretending to be a master in his 20s, a proper young talent, why would the Lu family be dissatisfied with you? Why? Wang Fuegui sighed and said with a wry smile, actually, we all underestimate the Lu family. The Lu family confessed to me last night that there are sex and aristocratic families in the ancient martial arts world. The Lu family is one of the 4 great families in the ancient martial arts world. They were descendants of the Shu kingdom and occupied Beishan. However, they later declined. They lost the famous mountain challenge and were driven out of Beishan by a sect that suddenly emerged. Wang Fuegui continued, famous mountain challenge, young Master Su, do you understand? Well, I've heard a little bit about it, please continue. It's good to understand. The Lu family lost the competition, moved their family out of Beishan, and finally chose to settle in Kyoto. This was probably more than 200 years ago. Wang Fuegui said, for the past 200 years, successive generations of the Lu family have worked hard to regain control of Beishan, but unfortunately, they have never succeeded. The Lu family are almost obsessed with it. They always dream of taking over Beishan. The Lu family knows about the ancestors of the Zhang family. Zhang Changsheng, the ancestor of the Zhang family, is the leader of the Iron Fist sect and is extremely powerful. Wang Fuegui continued, Lu Shushan's grandfather told me that Zhang Changsheng is already a half step to the divine section. It is very likely that he will step into the real divine sect, and there is even a chance to take a further step. The future is bright. Wang Fuegui said, the Lu family wants me to take the place of the Lu family in the 100 sex martial arts competition. As long as I can enter the top 10, Lu Shushan will be betrothed to me. It's a pity that they found the wrong person. Zhang Changsheng will not be able to help them participate in the famous mountain challenge, Su Yang said with a playful smile. Wang Fuegui flattered him at first, then thought of himself, and asked, young Master Su, if I use all my strength, can I kill half-step Shenzong? Wang Fuegui gritted his teeth and said, young Master Su, tell me, who wants to compete with me for first place? I have to cut off his gill and feed it to the dogs. Then I will participate in the 100 sex martial arts competition. I must get the ranking, gain the approval of the Lu family, and marry that violent girl Lu Shushan into the Wang family. Because Zhang Changsheng is already dead, and I killed him. Not to mention the half-step Shen section. According to my speculation, even the real Shen sect may not be able to capture the old antiques in Beishan. Otherwise, Beishan would have changed hands over the years, and you would have no hope of winning. That's it? Can you bear this? Su Yang smiled softly and said, the entire Iron Fist sect has been destroyed by me, and the Lu family still wants to count on Zhang Changsheng. Haha, it's just wishful thinking. No, you can only be second. Su Yang smiled lightly and said truthfully. I've heard of that place in Beishan. It's the holy land of Sichuan and Sichuan. It's the head of 100,000 mountains and has endless resources. Su Yang's face darkened and he looked at Wang Fuegui with anger. In the Mingshan challenge, Don't have any illusions. There are many old monsters in the ancient martial arts sect, and there should be quite a few in the Shen section. When you reach the Shen zone level, you can pass the famous mountain challenge and regain the opportunity to take over Beishan. Depend on. Wang Fugui's eyes were extremely firm, and then he smiled confidently. Young Master Su, with my conditions, I can definitely beat those young talents. Wouldn't I be able to become the number one? I see. Young Master Su is so awesome. Zhang Changshen is a half-step divine section, you can even kill him. You are worthy of being a god in my heart. Su Yang shook his head, and then said, now that you are at the 8th level of Qi training, possessing the Tali sword body, practicing the immortal heavenly art, and the Samsara sword technique, you may be able to struggle when you encounter the half-step divine section. Cannot. Don't forget to send me a message for love, like it, please. Wang Fugui continued, however, the Lu family has not given up on the marriage, because Zhang Changshen is still alive and they are unwilling to accept me. They just want to wait for Zhang Changshen to return to Kyoto and marry Lu Shushan again. Su Yangyu turned around and smiled softly, however, you can participate in the 100 sex martial arts competition. With your strength, you will definitely be among the best and fulfill your agreement with the Lu family. Wang Fugui asked in confusion, why? Grass. After hearing the whole story, Su Yang showed a sneer, haha, this Lu family, in order to take over Beishan, they have done everything they can to give away their relatives. It is really despicable. Wang Fugui smiled bitterly and said, so, the Lu family made a deal with Zhang Changshen, marrying Lu Shushan to Zhang Changshen in exchange for Zhang Changshen's help. There are actually some contestants in the 100 sex martial arts competition who are stronger than me. I, the king, are rich and powerful, and I don't accept it? You also know what happened later. You made a big fuss about the Zhang family and almost destroyed the Zhang family. The marriage between the Lu family and the Zhang family has come to an end. But who would have thought that Wang Fugui would actually call him a dog and cut him off? But Lu Shushan threatened to die last night. The Lu family had no choice but to make a condition with me.